you all for coming out to today's presentation. Today we have Samina and Jennifer from Tidewell Hospice. They're going to talk to us a little bit today about what hospice is and what it isn't. So there's a lot more to hospice than what we've learned and what we know of. And today they're going to give us that information.
Thank you, Tanya, and thank you all for being here. So we're going to start with morning aerobics. I'm just joking. So, Tidewell Hospice, when we say the word hospice, I'm just going to go right for the white elephant in the room right now. What do we think of? We think of end of life. Yeah, sometimes it is, but not always. And a lot of the times it isn't. It's palliative care. So what's palliative care? Palliative care is care that allows us to stay where we want to be in our home, and we may need some extra care. It may be wound care, it may be medication management. I kind of like to explain it that we're a concierge team. We work in conjunction with your medical team, not independently, and we make sure that you have the best quality care, life, and that every moment of every day is your best possible moment. So we thought to kick us off, we'd start with some questions, and if you get them right, you get one of our lovely antibacterial sprays. Okay, so is palliative care expensive? Who thinks? Yes, no? Yes? Does anyone think that insurance covers it? I'm so happy I asked that, because guess what? Medicare covers it. We all pay into it, every single one of us, and Medicare covers it all. Isn't that awesome? So why not use it when we can? Okay, so we have some questions here. Hospice provides round-the-clock care. What do you think?
Yes.
Oh, I have to ferret. Well, yes and no. I know, that's kind of, yeah. When we have crisis care, so if during our care you need that 24/7, we are there. A lot of times though it's intermittent, just based on your individual needs. Something I love about Tidewell Hospice, if you don't know this, is that we're not for profit. So even if somebody didn't have Medicare, we would take care of them, that doesn't matter. And also, we've been in the community for over 40 years. We are everywhere, so we are there for you as you need it. And every resident and patient has an individual care plan that changes as their needs change. Oh, wait, let's see, let's give you one other question here. I must leave my home to receive hospice care.
No.
Absolutely, yes, you do not have to leave your home. Now, we do have some hospice houses if somebody would need that to manage some symptoms that were hard to manage in their home and they did not want to go into a hospital. But you guys did well. I think I may need to give a lot of these out. I'm gonna pass it on, and thank you for playing, and I'll pass these out while our lovely lady is talking. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Samina. Thank you, everyone. So how's everyone this beautiful Florida morning? Wonderful. Yes. Doesn't that sunshine make us all feel good? Absolutely. Well, as Tanya said, my name is Jennifer Newman, and my official title with Tidewell is Community Partnership Specialist. And basically all that means is that I go out into the community and I chat with people just like you. My goal is to make sure that people understand what hospice is and how they can access that. That is my main role. I am also a certified advanced care planner, so if someone in this room is interested in either completing their living will and going over those documents or possibly revising one, I'm available to do that also. The first thing I'd like to start out with is my why. Yes, I am an employee of Tidewell, so that is my job. However, my journey to get to that job is why I do what I do. I moved to Florida 3 years ago, and when I moved here, my mother was very ill. It was not a great time to move, but circumstances as they were, I had to move. I was here a few months, then I started interviewing with Tidewell, and it was a long process because Tidewell really does put you through a lot to determine who is the best fit for this company, because it's really important to us that we have the right people. So I had gone through 3 interviews with Tidewell. My final hurdle was a presentation that I needed to do. But before I could do my presentation, my mother had a heart attack and a stroke, and she was in the hospital. So she was only in the hospital 2 days, thank goodness. However, after she went home, she became very ill. She became septic and had to go back to the hospital. She was there 18 days, and they said there was nothing more they can do. Now, my mom had an underlying health condition. She had COPD. So the doctor said, you either take her home or you put her in a hospice house. My mom's condition was so grave at that point that there really wasn't anything that could be done. So we moved her to the hospice house in the town where we lived in Ohio. My mom lived 4 days in the hospice house. So you're probably saying, why are you telling me this? The reason that I tell you this is because so many people do not get hospice care when they're eligible for it, and they miss out on all of the great care, because our care is not only medical, it's also mind, body, and spirit. We use holistic treatments to help people because we focus on quality of life. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. So my mother's doctor never talked to her about hospice care. He knew my mom was eligible months before she had the heart attack and stroke. She was very frail, her condition continued to decline. She was not going to get better, but he never had that conversation with her. And my brother and I were her sole caregivers. And my mother would not listen to us. We're her children, no matter how old that we were at the time. She wouldn't listen to us. She listened to her doctor. So my goal today, and every time I speak to people, is to make sure that every single person in here understands what hospice care is, the types of services that we provide, and how you can get it, because you do not need your doctor to refer you to get hospice care. Hospice is just another medical choice that we all have. And as Samina pointed out, if you have Medicare, you paid for that your entire life. There's a built-in hospice benefit in Medicare Part A that covers anything related to your hospice diagnosis 100%. So where people really miss out, and like my mom, she could have used a hospital lift bed. Had she used her hospice benefit under her Medicare Part A, she would have gotten that bed for free. She really needed to sleep propped up, so she ended up sleeping in a recliner because she never accessed that hospice benefit. Likewise, if someone needs a bedside commode, and anything related to that, a walker, a wheelchair, medications, it is all covered 100%. So the patient never receives a bill for those services. So that's just one thing I want you to remember as we go through the slideshow, okay? So Tidewell Hospice, it's more than you think. And that's really what I want to drive home. There's so many wonderful additional services that we provide to help our patients and their families. It's not just about the patient, it's also about their families. And our mission is helping people live well by providing care, comfort, and compassion. And that's something we live every day. So, things to know. Tidewell is a nonprofit hospice organization. There are for-profits, and we are a not-for-profit. So what does that mean to everyone in this room? Well, what it means is we give back to the community. We have wonderful, wonderful donors all throughout our 4-county service area that support the programs that we provide to our patients and the community. Because not everything is just for our patients. We do some things within our community that we're going to talk about to help. So that is definitely the pros of a nonprofit organization. We also do not answer to shareholders. So we're not looking to shell out a bunch of money to shareholders. That money goes back into our patient care. Services are covered by Medicare, Medicaid, private health insurance, and private pay. But again, we go back to that nonprofit status. If we have a patient who can't afford our care, we never turn them away. We take care of every single person in our community that needs our services. Our Tidewell Foundation provided over $4 million in 2021 to cover a lot of non-reimbursed services, and that would include hospice care. We have paid for cremations for patients that are indigent and have no money to pay for that. We provide a lot of complimentary services, which I'm going to talk about later too. If we have a patient in their home who's facing a crisis and can't make their rent payment, we will assist them. We do the first one, but we also have a huge network of other services and providers within our communities that can help those patients continue to make their payments, and same with like electric bills and those types of things. So that's where the money goes. It's to support our community. So a few things to know, that Tidewell has been serving our community since 1980. We are in DeSoto, Charlotte, Sarasota, and Manatee counties. We did recently merge with Empath Health, also known as Suncoast Hospice. Do we have anybody in here that originally came from Pinellas or Hillsborough counties? No? Okay. Well, that's, oh, you, sir? You're from that area? No? Oh, no, okay, I thought you raised your hand. So that's where our sister company, Suncoast, is. So if you hear me say Empath Health, that is our parent company. So we are, always will remain Tidewell Hospice. That is the hospice portion of our company. But under the Empath Health, we have a lot of other companies, like we have a home health care, we have skilled nursing, we have a physician service where the physicians will actually come wherever the patient is. That can be a primary care physician. So we have a lot of other types of services which makes us be able to provide full life care to patients. So the goals of hospice care is to provide care and support to any patient living with a life-limiting illness. But the goal is not just to provide medical care, it's also to treat the whole patient. And that's when I talk about the mind, body, and soul. It's the whole patient. And we focus on quality of life, not quantity. I know a lot of people think that once they enter hospice care, that means that the end is very near. And it certainly doesn't have to be that way. For my mother, it was. And I think that's a lot of the reason that patients, or people, I shouldn't say patients, that people fear hospice and they think that means the end. But that has to do with when people access the services. They just basically get them too late. There are so many patients like my mom that move directly from a hospital into our hospice facilities, and on average, I think they live 11 days, 7 to 11 days is the average length of stay when we get a patient that late in their disease process. So those are things I want you to think about when you think about getting hospice care. Like Samina said earlier, it doesn't mean that you're going to die today or tomorrow. A lot of times we can stabilize patients and improve their quality of life to actually extend it. And sometimes people actually stabilize so much that they are no longer eligible for our care. So you say, well, what happens? They come off of our care, but as soon as they start showing decline again, and when I say decline, I'm talking about losing weight, maybe not being as active. Some people do become, bedridden where they can't get up and walk around. When that starts to occur, they can come right back onto hospice care. So we do have people that come off and on and off and on. There is no rule when it comes to hospice and how long people have. We promote dignity, and we also prepare the patient and their family for end of life. I know I've never died, so I have a lot of fear, and I'm going to admit that. I have a fear of the unknown. But there's two things that every single person in this room has in common. We were all born, and we are all going to die. But what it comes down to is choosing how we want those last days of our lives to be. So hospice care is delivered by an interdisciplinary team. We also call it an IDG. We have a lot of acronyms, but basically all that means is we have one whole team. So when a patient comes onto our services, they're assigned that IDG team, and that consists of the physician, an RN, an LPN, certified nursing assistant, social workers, chaplains, and any other types of services they may need. Like if they need occupational therapy, they need speech therapy, they have a special diet, they need a dietitian. You get all of those services. And that team meets no less than every 2 weeks to go over each patient's plan of care. And when they get together, they talk about the patient. It's a great way for each person to share what they know about the patient, what they've experienced, what the patient is experiencing, so that plan of care can be adjusted based on that patient. Our staff is available for support on call 24/7. Now again, I'm going to refer back to Samina. As Samina said, that doesn't mean that our team is there every single day, but they are a phone call away. They come out as scheduled to check, make sure everything is okay, but we are always there. There's always a number to call and always a way to get help when it's needed. We also provide that care wherever the patient lives. If we have a patient in independent living, we have a patient in an assisted living, long-term care or nursing home, hospital, private home, and believe it or not, homeless. We take care of every single person in our community if they need us. And our teams have gone out to homeless camps. Our teams have been in less than desirable situations. But if that's where the patient lives, that is where we will go. And this is just a little pie chart that again shows the interdisciplinary group or the care team that comes out to take care of our patients. But as you notice at the center of that, patient and family, because we wrap our arms around the patient and our families. Because when you think about it, the patient is not the only one going through this. The patient's family is also going through this. And it's a time where people aren't always thinking right because they're upset. But our team walks with those patients and families every day through every step to answer every question, to be a shoulder to cry on. We are there. I mentioned those things that our foundation supports that people will never receive a bill for. We call those complementary services. And a lot of these services go back to that holistic approach. Studies have shown that there's a correlation between pain and activities and things that make people happy. So we have a lot of different therapies that we use to help people to manage pain, to improve mood. A lot of people fall into depression when they're going through a lifelong illness or a life-limiting illness. We have massage therapists that come in, and they will also do hand massages for family members and stuff like that. Expressive arts. Painting is a great therapy for people. Anytime someone's mind can be taken off what's going on with their body, there is...
Sorry,
That's okay.
we wanted to kind of interject while you...
Yes, perfect. We use music therapy. I don't know if anyone during the height of COVID caught the news. I think it was on a Sarasota station. It showed one of our music therapists who actually would stand outside of the window of some of the different communities and sing for people, because people were on lockdown at assisted living and nursing homes. They couldn't see their families, they couldn't get outside, they couldn't do anything. So that was just another way that Tidewell tried to at least bring a little bit of happiness and joy to people within our communities. We have a horticulture program where people get to plant some things. We have pet therapy. All of our pets are owned by volunteers. We have well over 100 pets, mostly dogs, but we do have, well, we used to have a hairless cat. I don't know if the cat is still there, but people love animals, and animals have a way of really unlocking the brain, especially if we have someone with dementia, form of dementia or Alzheimer's. We do aromatherapy, Reiki, and caring touch. One of the great things we have is called Paro. Antonina is a social worker with Tidewell, and she's going to show you Paro. Paro has a name, doesn't he, besides Paro? Does it, just a seal? Oh, I thought it had like a human
He's
name.
very interactive, very intuitive, and he goes off your cues, or reacts to our cues, I should say.
Paro was purchased with funds, donor funds from our foundation. I think $7,000 to $8,000 for Paro. Paro is an interactive seal, and I'm going to let you kind of, can you hold that in? You want me to hold it up?
Oh, you can.
Okay, kind of explain what Paro does.
Well, Powell, you can just touch Powell. Powell will do whatever you want. I would demonstrate.
Okay.
Like,
Wanna-
I mean,
Somebody want to hold
anybody
Paro?
want to hold Powell? Sure. Sure.
And Paro's used with our dementia patients, correct?
Yes. Now, you can pet Powell, just like you would do your.
My kitty cat.
You can touch Powell's nose. You see?
Oh, he closes his eyes. Antonina, do we have one
That's
more?
it, right?
It's not, do we have another, right? Do we have, is it a cat that we have, or?
No, we can get all kinds, because
Okay.
I can get, dogs and cats for my
Okay.
patient. It depends on what they like,
Okay.
then I will get it for them.
Oh, I didn't realize we had more.
I didn't realize that.
Well, it's, and we get that with a wish fund.
Okay.
Like sometimes, you know, my patients, like they are dog lovers, cat
Yes.
lovers, and they are in the assisted living, they're not allowed to have those kind of things. Then I will purchase one with the humanitarian fund, which is money that we are donated to Tidewell. And then I would get it, for that patient, and that patient will have it. So, but this one in particular is, that's the only one that we have. So we are hoping to get more, but,
I thought we had
It's
two
very
seals back as
expensive.
well. Yes,
so.
yes. But very wonderful for those patients. What have you seen when patients interact with Paro? What kinds of reactions?
Sometimes they don't want to give it away. Look at that. You see the smile? Okay. You see the smile?
Very lifelike.
Yes.
Paro's very lifelike.
And Power is not messy. You don't have to clean up the
Doesn't get hair on your clothes?
Yes. And then we do sanitize Power after
Oh,
each
nice.
use. Yes, I have the brush and everything else.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anybody else want to hold Paro? Don't be shy.
Oh.
We'll
What
have
sound
him up
is-
at the table, we'll be with him
Is this
too,
kid?
if
It's
you
a
want
seal.
to hold him
Seal,
afterwards.
Uh-huh.
okay, it's a seal.
So you can touch different part of the body will get different
We'll
movement.
change the
Yes. Yes.
position.
So that way it's the way with your touch. Oh. You put it to sleep. Look at that.
He's going to sleep.
Oh my God. Oh.
There he is.
Oh.
Sorry to wake you up, buddy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh my gosh, I thought these were the eyes. The eyes are down here. When he opens them up, you can really see.
I think he loves you.
Of course he does. There's no reason not to.
So, oh, look at those beautiful eyes, right?
Nice to see, yeah, yeah. He is pet. I've had dogs before, but like you say, it'd be better if it didn't have animal hair and so forth,
Right.
so forth. If they had dog has this capability of whining or,
I'm a social worker.
look at that.
Yeah.
Do you want to take Carl around while we
Yes.
finish, or?
Sure.
Okay. Now let people hold.
Right here.
We'll keep it.
Anybody else want power?
It's about 3-4 pounds, right?
Fun, as we talked about before. So that is one of the many wonderful things that our foundation can do, thanks to all those donors. And again, that's the benefit of being a nonprofit, is that we can offer things like that to our patients to improve their quality of life, that perhaps maybe a for-profit cannot do, because they aren't willing maybe to spend the money on something like that. Yeah.
Do you work through your primary care doctor? Is he the one that kind of supervises or
Yes, that would be our medical director.
recommends things
Yes.
to your group there?
Yes.
And to do with that person, and then they do check back with them overall to pull everything together, so that one doctor is in
Yes,
control.
we have that, we call him our medical
Who's doing
director.
what and how they're doing it, or if they need to change something, that he can do that.
Correct, and when they do the care plan, yes, there's always communication amongst all those members of that team to make sure that that patient is getting everything they need, and if something needs to be changed, yes, then they consult the medical director and the RN case manager who is over that team for the patient.
Is that your primary care doctor that you have presently? Is that, if you want that doctor to coordinate everything, or do you have your own doctor that coordinates that from Tidewell in front of you?
This is one of those things I talked about, how hospice care has changed over the years. A lot of people think that they can no longer use their primary care physician that maybe they've had for years. Anyone can keep their primary care physician. However, our medical director will work with them. Our medical director is always involved, because we can't have you can't have multiple people making decisions and trying to change the care plan, but they can work in conjunction. So yes, a patient can keep their primary care physician on as a consult. Absolutely.
I have one question about this, and I have to be as frank as I can be. We have an organization here for home care, and I don't know how many different, if that's part of Medicare or not, or what. And then also we have a building that goes from assisted living to memory care to eventual final time down in the hospice section of the building over here, the 3rd story.
Okay.
And I don't know how many services they're providing for us automatically from the program that we have here, the life care program that was set up for us to be part of. What's happening with how you interact with these people? The home care people here, the ones that are over there in hospice care, what I call it hospice care, final care. And I know it's pretty crowded over there. And way too crowded, and they don't have enough staff to cover everybody, so you don't get a lot of attention. And maybe you're just on medication most of the time to pass the day, because they can't do much else.
Right. Well, if we have a patient that is in a community, like say we have a patient here in the ALF, our teams will work with the nurses and the staff to coordinate that care. Again, we are not there every day, but we coordinate the care with the staff in those communities. So, and it works well.
Do you mind if I interject real quick? No, just, thank you, thanks for asking that question. I think I understand what you're asking, you want to dig a little deeper. So Medicare does pay for palliative care, but there are diagnoses that have to be present for Medicare to pay. And it also is aligned with that extra level of care. So for example, I have a lot of patients, residents that are in the ALF. There's a certain, and this gets into it a little too much, I'll just briefly touch on it, but there are certain credentials that every ALF has, for example. at some point, one of their residents need a level of care that they cannot provide. They're not able to provide or allowed to provide even based on their credentialing. But their resident is very happy and wants to stay where they're at. So at that point, they'll give me a call and we'll get our team out there to evaluate. And maybe it's just that they all of a sudden they're losing weight very quickly, their appetite's decreased. Maybe they can't just get out of bed themselves, they need a couple of people to help them. So we're an extra layer of care for the care that is already in place. So what does that translate into independent living? You have some incredible services here. But let's say it gets to a point where it's just, you need more care on a daily basis, a weekly basis than independent living can handle, then we come in, we evaluate, and if you qualify for it, we're there with your team that's already in place to add whatever that extra care means. Again, medication management, wound care, perhaps it's just daily things like bathing or grooming, whatever it may be. Does that answer your question?
Give me more information that I need to know on what choices you're going to make.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Are you still able?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So thank you for letting me interject.
Thank you very much, Samina. That is your forte there. A little more than mine, a little deeper than mine. Okay. Tidewell also has a whole troop of volunteers, and we can't do what we do without our volunteers. Our volunteers provide respite care. If we have someone in their home who has a caregiver, our volunteers will go and sit with that patient while the caregiver runs their errands or goes to get their hair done, whatever they need to do. We also do provide respite care in our hospice houses. So if a patient can't be alone and a caregiver needs to go away for up to a week, that patient can come into our hospice house and have respite care. So that is another wonderful service that we provide to our patients. Our volunteers can also just be listening ears, provide companionship during COVID. We didn't have our volunteers out and about because we were very concerned not only for their health, but our patients' health. So they would make phone calls and chat with people because we have a lot of people that are alone, especially here in Florida, where a lot of people have moved here and they may not have family. So it was important for us to keep that connection and to make sure that people were okay, not only physically, but mentally, that they were okay. They provide companionship, social support. They can run light errands. They also will sit vigil. If we have a patient that has no family and they are in the stages of dying, actively dying, they will sit vigil with that patient because no patient should have to be alone. They do our complimentary services, and they also support our Tidewell Honors Veterans Program. Do we have any veterans in here? Okay. Yeah, Charlotte County is a big hub for veterans. Veterans are very important to us in our community. We are part of the Honors Program, which is a national program. Tidewell has attained level 5 in that program, which is the highest level you can attain, and that's based on how we care for our veterans and their families. We do special ceremonies, we call them pinning ceremonies. Every veteran that we take under our care goes through a pinning ceremony, and that's veteran to veteran, so it's a veteran volunteer pinning a veteran patient. We have these beautiful pins that we pin our veteran with. We also do other projects. There's a legacy project we can do with the veteran and their family. A lot of families do not know much about their loved one's service. That's something that a lot of veterans have kept close to their heart. They don't talk about it. So we try to work with them, and we do a legacy project so the family has something that they can hold and look at. So again, the veterans program is very important to us. Our staff is trained to deal with issues that veterans may experience throughout the process. So that's another important component of it, is the training that our staff goes through. Yes, sir?
I'm curious about the staff that would deal with you, that would be understanding of your male or your female female, requirements or needs or preferences? Do you have access to, like, for a man, you would have a man come in and do these things for him, the companionship,
Yes,
if you
we,
want a male.
yes, absolutely.
If you want a female, many women would want female, and they have that preference.
Absolutely. We try our best to match a volunteer and a patient, so it's a good match. So they may have things in common to talk about.
Right, right.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That's a very important component of that program. Yes, good question. So whom do we serve? We serve anyone with an advanced illness. I know a lot of people think that hospice is only for cancer patients, but actually hospice is for any life-limiting illness, whether it's cancer, Parkinson's, any form of dementia, heart disease, COPD. The only thing that we can't help people with is old age. And I actually had a lady, I love this story because she was so sweet. I spoke in front of a group at an assisted living facility, and I had a lady there who was 100 years old. And she actually was the one who wanted Tidewell to come and speak. And when I said that we can't help people if the only, and it's not a disease, it's not an illness, if their only thing is old age. And she was upset. She wanted our care. So I told her, I said, I am so thankful you're healthy, but if something changes, please don't hesitate to call us. But I thought that was funny. I was happy for her, 100 and still very healthy, so I would rather see that than not healthy. But we we take care of everyone, regardless of age, gender, ethnicity, diagnosis, belief system, or their financial situation. And again, we never turn anyone away due to inability to pay. Just another chart shows our growth over the years. This is not very updated. Our last statistic came from 2019, and I'm sure that has gone up, but 2019, we served almost 10,000 patients in our 4-county service area. And that's through great understanding of what hospice is. I think the more that people understand it and they're not afraid of it, they see it as just another form of medical care, that's going to continue to rise. Pie chart that shows the top diagnosis that we see. Cancer is still the leading diagnosis, but cardiovascular, and we've just introduced a new cardiovascular program to help treat patients with heart disease that we have under our care. So that's really going to be a great program for our patients. Neurological, which includes all the forms of dementia, and pulmonary. And then you see there's a lot of other smaller portions of that pie, I should say, of things that we treat. Care is provided wherever the patient calls home. Long-term care, assisted living, private home, hospital, hospice house, and as I said before, even if we have a patient who is homeless, living under a bridge or in a field, our team will go there and take care of that patient. And I was told recently, we actually had a patient who lived in a garage, and he didn't want to leave. That was his home. He didn't live in a great neighborhood. It's kind of scary for our teams. There were some incidents there, but they kept going back because that patient needed care. We do have our hospice houses, and they are absolutely beautiful. A lot like the feeling you get in here, very homey. It's a great environment for patients and families, and that just tells you the breakdown of where they are. We do have one right here in Port Charlotte. Did everyone know that? We have one on Veronica Street, okay. And that has 12 beds. So, but basically we use those if we have a patient who's in crisis, a patient we can't manage in their own home. That's typically the reason we use the hospice houses, other than respite care, as I said before. So if we have a patient that's in crisis, we move them to the hospice house where they're getting 24-hour, 7-day-a-week care. But the goal is to get that patient stabilized and get them back to the home where they really want to be. The features, and there are a few pictures of the hospice houses. The picture up here is actually the common area, we call it. It's a nice place for people to go sit and relax. The actual rooms are very home-like. There's a nice couch, pull-out couch, a recliner. Families can actually stay in those rooms, which is nice. All of our hospice houses, except one, also have bathrooms that families can use if they want to freshen up, clean up. So if someone has a loved one there and they don't want to leave, they don't have to. They can stay there. And even during COVID, we still allowed family members to come in. It was very, very limited, but we never cut off access to loved ones. Yes?
This is probably a futile question, but what if your rooms are all full and someone is required to go to hospice?
We will find a bed in one of our hospice houses. They will go. If they need that care, they will go. Sometimes it may not be the most convenient for the family, but we have to do what's best for the patient. So if someone was here in Port Charlotte and that hospice house was full, then we would probably look to Inglewood, Venice. We also have one in Arcadia.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was a good question. So this is something that we hear all the time when people come under our care that I wish I had known sooner. Because remember I talked about how so many patients don't get that care soon enough. So they really don't live long enough to take advantage of all that great care, to form that relationship with that care team. And that's really important, that they have a relationship with the care team to build trust. So we hear that all the time. So what I want to leave you with is what you should look for if you're thinking that you might need hospice care or someone that you know might need hospice care. If that person has had frequent visits to the ER, multiple hospital stays, if they have a terminal illness, any end-stage disease, as we talked about, heart disease, COPD, dementia, treatments are no longer working. I like to use my dad when I talk about that because my father also used hospice care, but it was a totally different experience than my mother. He had hospice care in the home. My father had cancer, and his oncologist was so kind. He gave a gift to my dad and my brother and I and my mom because he told my dad flat out that the chemo was no longer working. But he gave my dad a choice. He said, I will keep giving it to you, or you can seek hospice care, or you can go home and do nothing. So he gave my dad choices. And he was very upfront with my dad, in a kind way, but very upfront. So my dad chose hospice care, and he received care in the home. So he chose quality and comfort care, to have that in the home, to no longer suffer through the treatments that were not working. We also say when a physician determines it, because he determined it for my dad, but in the case of my mother, we know he never ever discussed it with her. So that's what I want to leave you with, and that's why I tell those stories, because it's also a gift to your family to have that extra help. I didn't have that. My mom lived in her home up until the time she went to the hospital and then moved directly to the hospice house. But my mom really needed that extra care in the home. And my brother and I really needed that support that we never got. So always remember, you are in charge of your own care. You have the power and you have knowledge. So if that's something you choose, hospice or any other type of care, my mom also never went to a pulmonologist because her doctor never referred her. And she should have been seeing a pulmonologist for her COPD. So we all are empowered by knowledge, and that is the whole goal today of speaking to you, is to have that knowledge so you can make the choice that's right for you. Another one, worded a little bit differently, I wish I had called sooner. I wish I had known, and I wish I had called sooner. Barriers, stigmas, and fear. As we talked about before, I call it the H word. There's a lot of fear. I've walked in, and when people see hospice, they're like, oh, why are you here? I'm not ready for you. No, we're never ready, but it's about need and quality of care. And families have this notion that if they want hospice for their loved one, it's giving up it's not giving up, it's moving to a different phase, not giving up at all. And we talked about the average length of stay, it is 11 days. And the Medicare hospice benefit allows up to 180 days, and it can definitely extend beyond that because there is no time frame on an illness or how long someone has. We can guess, but nobody truly knows. And referrals to hospice are pushed to the last days or hours. And again, I go back to my mother, that's exactly what happened to her. She was in the hospital, they wanted her out. So, last minute. Do we have any more questions? We had some wonderful questions today. Yes?
I've recently been having a big experience with hospice, Tidewell in Veronica House, and it was wonderful. My
Glad
husband
to
had
hear.
Alzheimer's for 7 years, and we were 10 days in memory care. It advanced quickly, 10 days in the hospital. One morning I called hospice, not knowing a thing except that people I knew it had hospice. An hour later, the doctor at the hospital called after 10 days where he just wasn't getting better and had to be restrained. And they said, have you ever heard of hospice? I said, I called an hour ago. So I was so glad. And within an hour at the hospital, 24 hours later, Gwyneth, I don't know if you know Gwyneth, she had done all the paperwork and was ready to be moved to Veronica House. And it was as wonderful for him as it was for me. It was a beautiful home, wonderful people. It was just a blessing at that stage of life. But it was interesting. I knew nothing, and I'm gonna ask this question. It will always be my charity, one of my charities that I will donate to forever. And in fact, I'm meeting with Nicole Taylor tomorrow for lunch, but you know Nicole.
I do.
And this is our third visit, so anyway.
Wonderful.
After 10 days, he was there 10 days. And after the 7th day, the social worker came in and the doctor, and we signed a contract when we first go, you sign the papers, but you're so confused, you know, you really
Yeah.
don't know. And, we were both at such peace, you know, it was such a beautiful situation. But, and I just think people need to be aware of this, because we hear and there's no cost and it's Medicare, and Nicole's curious about this. After the 7th day, the social worker and doctor came in and had me sign a contract for routine care. And it was gonna be $225 a day. So I would have paid anything for a bill. So I got that bill later for $700 some dollars, gladly paid plus gladly. But that's been a question. That's just something we never, you know, I still wanna just have it explained.
Yeah, do you know the
So
answer,
people
Samantha?
know.
Is it not a Medicare Part?
I remember hearing this, and, I'm sorry, did you have an answer, or is that why you're? Oh, okay, thank you, we'll be right with you, and please, Antonina, step in if you know. I think what I heard, it has something to do, there's some legal or legalese, but I also was told, and I hope I'm not misspeaking, is that if you sign the contract and you can only give $5 a week, or $10 a week, that would be fine too. Am I right about that? Do you wanna?
Yeah, this had 225.
But you could, I think that's when you can say, I can't do that.
I just want to explain because people need to know that could happen.
Yes.
Right, basically, when they give you the paperwork for you to sign, it's based on your income. It's a scale. Let's say, if your income is, anywhere from $0 to $30,000, so it's about $5 a day. But if you have more than that, okay, so then you probably end up paying 5%, 10%, or the full amount.
And-
So your income probably was more than that, that's what you told them.
And I think it was worth every bit, but I
Yeah.
thought people need to be, educated about that.
Right.
That can be part of it. It was no question in my mind, and I can't thank you enough.
Yeah.
Just can't thank you enough, because hospice is more than what you say, more.
Yeah.
And I thank you.
And when you go to the hospice house, initially, when you go there for GIP, GIP means the same care you would be getting at the hospital. Okay, so you go to the hospital to get stabilized. So once you are stable, they let you go. Okay, so that's why you go to the hospice house. So once you're stable, you gotta go because they need the bed for somebody else who needs it. So then at that point, if you need to stay there because
He couldn't have been stabilized.
anything else, then Medicare is not gonna pay for it. So which means that